You're about to watch a video that will explain and document the turmoil in this industry revolving around feather prime and block. As you know, this is a refinish operation that for years has been snubbed by the insurance industry as either an included operation in repair times, or they have just been unwilling to compensate the shops for the work and materials that have been utilized. I have researched the CCC, Auditex, and Mitchell manuals, and each estimating system have independently stated that feather prime and block is a necessary operation that must be performed to bring a repaired part back to a new undamaged panel. Each manual also clearly states that published refinish times are for new undamaged panels. For this video, I will focus on just the operations, materials that will be needed to bring a typical panel back to new and undamaged. For demonstration, I have two identical pieces of sheet metal that have been e-coated just as a new fender would be out of the box. The first panel is undamaged and ready to be prepped for refinish. On this first panel, you could easily use the published refinish times as listed. This second panel was involved in a minor accident and required the dents to be repaired prior to refinish. As you can see, the repaired damage is about 18 inches long and 4 inches wide. This panel has been repaired to 150 grit, which is the final grit before being turned over to a paint technician. Also, this type of work would be typical of what a body shop would perform on a daily basis during the repair process. Once again, as the video continues, I want to remind you that we are only concerned with the time and materials it takes to bring this repaired panel back to new undamaged condition. This time and materials will be the disputed feather prime and block operation that has been omitted and uncompensated for years. I will track the time of actual work and stop the camera for all flash times and dry times for an accurate calculation. Prior to starting this demonstration, we have laid out all the materials that will be used for this process. As you can see, we have our plastic coating, we have our wipes, and also our primer, water-borne cleaner, as well as solvent-based cleaner. These are the materials that will be used actually in the demonstration. So let's begin. It's about 13 minutes after 10 o'clock, and our panel is ready. The first step we will take will be to cover the adjacent areas to protect from overspray, just as this were a fender or a door on the car. Once covered with plastic, it will utilize a razor blade to take off the plastic so we can get at our primed area. We'll then seal the edges with masking tape to ensure there's no overspray on the rest of the vehicle. Next step will be to clean the part with a water-borne cleaner. Body man had just got done to repair this part. We want to make sure there's no waterborne contaminants on it. For this small of an area, we can get by with an ounce of material, possibly a little less. And we should be able to do it with one shop towel, disposable. Once clean with a water-borne, we'll go back over this panel with a solvent-based cleaner, which will remove any oil or other types of solvent-type residues. You put a solvent on the towel, probably about an ounce worth, maybe a little less. Now we have a clean surface. We can go ahead and take that panel. We know there's no residue on it, so we can DA that panel with 320 grit. This will be the grit necessary to assure a good quality uniform primer base. This panel came to us with 150 grit. Feathering all the 150 scratches out. Blowing it off. Now the technician will once again clean with water and solvent-based cleaners to assure no contaminants. Two new towels will be used. You don't want to take any of the contaminants off the old towels and put on the surface. Once clean, now the technician will go mix up his primer surfacer. He's about 15 feet behind me is where our mixing area is. Last coat of solvent cleaner. You can see some of the debris that came up from the feathering operation. This panel is now ready to accept the primer surfacer coat. It'll take the technician a few minutes to get the primer mixed up. We discussed prior and we believe we're going to use approximately 3 to 5 ounces of primer, but we'll calculate the exact amount at the end of this video along with the other materials. During all the refinish operations in the Mitchell, Auditex, CCC manuals, the mix time is calculated into your color coat. Mix time is also calculated into your clear coat, as well as the cleaning of the gun. It's my contention that this particular operation, the feather prime and block, is best left to the judgment of the estimator and our technicians. Time to mix the primer for this operation should be inclusive in the time you bid for feather prime and block. The technician has now mixed the primer and has just come back into the room. He'll be ready to put the first coat on, and at that time we will turn the video off. We will leave 10 minutes flash time between coats. First coat is now completed, and we will turn the video off. 10 minutes flash time is up. The technician has picked up his gun, is ready to install the second coat. Done. Again, flash time is done. The technician has just picked up his gun, and we're going to apply the third and final coat. Technician is done. We will let this panel dry now. Okay, so we used a infrared drying lamp to cure this panel out, and at this point in time the vehicle, our panel, will be ready for guide coat. This is a coating that we will put on to make sure there's no imperfections in the panel. Technician will spray bomb that on. The panel is really good and warm from the infrared curing lamp, so it'll dry instantly. We will then go back over this with a 400 block wet. This process may or may not be needed. Much of this depends upon the size of the dent, the location of the dent, the contours of the panels. So for this purposes here, we know this panel's flat. Simple dent, 4 by 18 inches long. It won't take too terribly long to go ahead and block this. Some shops may block this dry. Our particular shop, we like to block wet to achieve a smooth, uniform surface. I want to correct myself. This operation is needed on every panel. Once it's been repaired and a primer surfacer has been installed. When we get done here, we will clean it and reapply 2 coats of a primer. That operation may or may not be needed, depending on the complexity of the dent's severity. Our experience has been the larger panels that you do, you will need to possibly recoat with primer. The larger the panel, the more apt you are to recoat to achieve a nice straight panel. We started this segment approximately 25 minutes after 11. And he's been into this process about 2.5 minutes. We will now remove the sanding dust that has gotten on the panel. Take a blow gun and dry the repaired and primed area. And once again, before we do our reprime, we will go back over it with a waterborne solvent to clean the area. Excuse me, a waterborne cleaner to clean the area. And once that process is completed, we'll once again go over it with a solvent-based cleaner. We use a fresh disposable towel each and every time to ensure there's no cross-contamination. Water base solvent is completed. Go back over that with a solvent base. That'll remove any oil or residue if fingers touched it or something was in the air and got on that panel. Once this is completed, you will go back to the mix room mix up his secondary primer. This is a thinner primer than the surfacer. This will achieve a uniform slick finish just as a new undamaged panel. And the technician has mixed his primer, and we'll put the first coat on. We're probably going to use approximately 2 ounces, possibly 2.5 ounces on this process. This has flashed off the first coat, and now the technician will apply the second coat of primer. And then he will go back and clean his gun. He will go ahead and clean his gun and wave his hand at me when that process is done. This is all part of the feather prime and block operation. Now this panel has been brought back to what we would call a new undamaged panel. So at this point in time, the panel is virtually identical to the first panel. The only difference will be the color of the primer that is on the panels. The technician is done cleaning his gun, and the last step for him to do would be to untape the car, and that will reveal both our panels that are ready to go, new, undamaged. And there you have it, folks. That's exactly what we do every day in our business. The process you just watched is called feather, prime, and block. These are those forgotten operations that we continually battle insurance companies over and have yet to be paid. I will turn the video off, and then we'll go to the billing and adding up of the time. Now that our repaired panel is back to new undamaged condition, let's take a look at the costs that were involved with this process. If you paid attention to the video, you'd find out that the technician spent approximately 15.5 minutes of actual work time in this process. So we would calculate that out into labor, and now we can go forward and look at the actual amount of the materials that were used. I called my local supplier, and he has given me the fair retail price on these materials. And as you can see, that all the materials that were used in this process calculate out to $31.09. Now if we take the amount of this material, which is $31.09, and in our particular area our labor rate average is $57 an hour, you figure 1/4 of an hour to perform the operation, that would be $14.25 labor, $31.09 for material, so you're around $45 for that 15 minutes of labor time. Our shop, we generally average about 100 jobs a month, so you're looking around $4,400 to $4,400 a month. If you take that times 12 months out of a year, we're in the neighborhood of around $53,000 a year in lost time due to no pay on feather, prime, and block. You can add numbers into your own area to figure out what your actual calculations would be. And also the other thing you consider is this is kind of a small average repair. They can get quite a bit more complex, or there may even be some easier ones. So you'll have to figure it out for yourself, but in my particular shop I can figure somewhere in the neighborhood of a minimum of $53,000 to $54,000 a year in lost sales. So with that, that ends the feather, prime, and block, and I hope whoever's watching that helps clarify some of the issues that we're up against. Thank you.